Hello everyone, this is part 46 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Sangaku, the capital city of the Land of Iron, and home to an army of samurai that even the shinobi nations held in high regards. Normally, a shinobi would disregard a samurai as a sword-bearing grunt, and usually that was the case. Against a trained shinobi, samurai really didn't stand much of a chance. The samurai of the Land of Iron, however, were a little different than your average samurai. For the most part, the Land of Iron was a peaceful and neutral nation. They preferred diplomacy over some mindless war that was fought between the greed of men and were often sought to act as mediators when it came to international disputes, but that didn't mean that they were weak cowards who were afraid of combat. No, the last thing you could do was insult a samurai from this proud nation by challenging his conviction. It was the last thing you could do, because it most likely would be the last thing you did before you found yourself at the samurai's blade. The samurai of the Land of Iron were regarded as masters of the sword, driven by faith and conviction that knew no rivals. These samurai could go toe-to-toe with even the most powerful of shinobi, and they were feared by many nations who ever had the displeasure of meeting them in battle. However, there was one who stood out amongst them all, the shogun, or high general of the Land of Iron, Mifune. To this day, Mifune widely recognized as the most skilled swordsman, having been trained by the only individual throughout history who could have claimed himself as Mifune's better in the art of swordsmanship. Mifune sat in front of a koi pond in the middle of his personal tranquility garden. Unless you were looking directly at the man, one would not even know he was there. Mifune was that synced with his surroundings and himself that he didn't even notice the messenger approach him, or at least he made no motion to appear disturbed in any sense. Taking one last deep breath, Mifune opened his eyes and ended his meditation, turning to and addressing the messenger. Sir, there are two individuals at the city gates asking for your presence. They appear to be shinobi and one matches the descriptions of the Toad-san and Jiraiya. The other appears to be a blonde adolescent, not older than 14 inches, reported the messenger. I see, thank you for that information, Isamu. Tell them that I will be with them momentarily, said Mifune. Isamu bowed to his commander before going to deliver the message to the shinobi. It appears as if it is about time to meet the last remaining descendant of my master. About 3 weeks ago, Mifune had received a message delivered by a toad, of all creatures, stating the existence and desire of an individual by the name of Uzumaki Naruto to train under him in the ways of Kenjutsu. Under normal circumstances, Mifune would have turned away the young Uzumaki, having already taken responsibility for the training of his own grandson Hiro, but the second piece of information about this young Uzumaki made him rethink taking on a second student. This second piece of information was also the most surprising piece as well. His new prospective student just so happened to be the great-great-grandson and last living descendant of his former master, Uzumaki Shuichi. It was Mifune's own conviction that made him agree to train the young Uzumaki. He still owed so much to his late master, and perhaps this would be a way to repay his own debt. Naruto and Jiraiya were currently waiting outside the gates to Sangaku. The cold mountain climate was not doing well for Naruto's patience, but Jiraiya assured him that everything would be alright once they were inside of the city. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity to the freezing Naruto, the gates opened and an older-looking man with a bandaged head and long gray hair coming out from the back stepped forward. Even Naruto could feel the aura around this man. He was certainly a powerful individual that commanded respect. Welcome to the Land of Iron and the capital city of Sangaku, Jiraiya of the Sannin and Uzumaki Naruto. I am Mifune, the commanding general of the Land of Iron. Please, step inside. It is warmer inside the city. With the much welcomed invitation, Naruto quickly made his way into the city and Mifune guided the pair towards his quarters. Once they were situated inside Mifune's personal study, the samurai general finally spoke. Now Jiraiya, would you mind explaining to me why this boy, who you mentioned as the great-great-grandson of my master, is here? I see no such resemblance to my late master or his clan, said Mifune. Sadly, that was true regarding Naruto. The most defining feature of the Uzumaki clan was the red, or white in older years, hair, something that Naruto was clearly lacking. Naruto was taken aback by this, someone actually questioning his heritage like this. Sure, it had happened before back in Konoha, but no one had ever said something like that directly to his face. What? I'll show you I'm an Uzumaki, Tobio. Naruto was immediately restrained by Jiraiya. Did you already forget what we talked about? The last thing you want to do is insult this man, Jiraiya whispered to Naruto before turning his attention back to Mifune. I understand where you're coming from, but I assure you he is the real deal, said Jiraiya. If you take a closer look, you might be able to recognize someone familiar in him. Mifune gave a slight nod and examined the blonde closer, before his eyes shot open. Kushina. With the exception of the hair and eyes, the boy in front of him certainly did have the looks of the former Uzumaki. His mother. His hair seems to take more after his father, said Jiraiya. So my goddaughter and Minato really did get together, said Mifune with a slight chuckle in his voice. Naruto's jaw was now hanging agape. Your goddaughter? My mother was your goddaughter? Asked Naruto. Mifune nodded. She was. I was studying under my master at the time of her birth and was a close friend of the entire family, and for some reason, they gave me the honor of being her godfather. Now that I look at you, I can see a lot of her in you, said Mifune. I apologize if I may have come off questioning at the beginning, but you must understand I consider it a grave insult for anyone not a B relative of the clan to bear the name Uzumaki. No, I kinda see where you're coming from, Mifune-sama, said Naruto, adding the polite honorific. Please, call me Mifune-sensei or Shosho, as I am correct that is why you are here, said Mifune. Naruto nodded. Yes, I asking you to please teach me the way of Kenjutsu, Mifune-sensei, said Naruto. Jiraiya just grunted at this. Sure, he calls Mifune Mifune-sensei, but it's still Ero Sennin for me. Damn Gaki. I will, but first do you have a sword? I cannot teach you what you already have, said Mifune. Actually, Naruto took out his Uzumaki book and opened it to one of the seals he had made, unsealing the Uzumaki sword, and now it was the usually stoic Mifune's turn to imitate a gaping fish. That sword was all Mifune could get out. Where did you find my master's sword? It was inside his B locker, back in the Uzushiogakure archives, said Naruto. I see, may I? Naruto nodded, not seeing any harm in the request made by Mifune, and handed the samurai general the ancient katana. Mifune unsheathed the blade and carefully examined it, now missing out any detail as he wanted to ensure it was genuine. Feeling satisfied, he spoke. This truly is my master's blade. It was thought lost decades ago. Mifune then slightly touched his finger to the blade, and that was even enough to see the master swordsman's experienced hands. It's still sharp. Very well, Uzumaki Naruto, I will do everything I can to make you worthy of my master's blade. Mifune-sensei, I've been wondering. I've heard rumors about that sword being special. Do you know what makes it so special? Asked Naruto. I do, but I will not tell you yet, said Mifune. That is something you have to earn. Damn it, I really want to know what makes this sword so special. Thought Naruto. So when do we start? I can't wait to get started, Tobio. We will start tomorrow. For now, there are a few things I need to discuss with your sensei, said Mifune, summoning Isamu. Isamu here will escort you to your quarters where you will be staying for the next months. Naruto nodded before following Isamu out of the door. First, I want to say thank you for agreeing to this, Mifune-san, addressed Jiraiya. Think nothing of it. This was the very least I could do, honor my master's legacy and my great godson. Besides, I believe he make for a good influence on my grandson, said Mifune. Hiro's grown arrogant and distant lately. If he's anything like Kushina, I'm sure he can get my grandson to see the light. Now, what will you be doing while I am working with your student? If you think I'm letting you near the hot springs, you might as well just commit seppuku now and save my samurai the trouble. Jiraiya gulped, but shook it off. Actually, I need to check up on my spy network, and I was wondering if I could leave him in your care for the next 6 months. Something's stirring that's making me rather uneasy. I will train him and allow him quarters, but if any trouble arises, then it will be on his and your shoulders, said Mifune. You must realize that we are samurai, and I will not spare someone to care for him 24 out of 7. I don't think that will be an issue. Naruto's actually a rather independent person. Just give him a bed and point him towards the nearest ramen stand and he'll be fine, joked Jiraiya. Anyways, I should go find Naruto and let him know. Jiraiya bowed to Mifune before leaving the study. Naruto had just finished unpacking his scrolls when a knock came on his door and Jiraiya stepped in. Ero Sennin. Stop calling me that, Gaki, said Jiraiya. Anyways, I want to let you know that I won't be around for the next 6 months while you're training with Mifune-san in Kenjutsu. What? Why not? You're supposed to be the one to train me, replied Naruto. Naruto, you have no need for me here. Even you'll probably be too tired in the evening to do much training other than Fuinjutsu. Besides, something's stirring out there that's got me uneasy. I need to check in with my spy network. There have been rumors about something going on with Iwa. Iwa, said a slightly startled Naruto, remembering the night of the Chunin exam when he and his team were ambushed by the 15 Iwa genin. Yeah, you should understand why I need to look into this further. You've improved a lot over the past year, but you're still not ready to face the full force of Iwa just yet, said Jiraiya. You'll be allowed to stay here and train with Mifune and his grandson for the next 6 months. There's a ramen stand somewhere in the city, but please try to eat something besides ramen every night. Even for you, Mifune's training's not going to be easy. He's going to drive you to the bone and expect you to do it all over again the next day. If you hope to survive, you need to eat properly. I understand, said Naruto. Good. When I get back, we'll head off and resume the next phase of your training, said Jiraiya. Well, see ya in 6 months. And remember, don't get into too much trouble. Naruto was up early the next morning, making his way to the dojo where he would begin his boot camp, training. He was no longer wearing his usual outfit consisting of the orange shirt, black pants, and black vest. Instead, Mifune had provided him with a gray battle kimono for training purposes and his ancestor's sword tucked in the sash on his side. As he entered the dojo, he saw Mifune sitting in a meditative position with his sword stretched out in front of him. Another person was in the room, facing Mifune and in the same posture as the samurai general. The person in question was a boy around Naruto's age, wearing a brown battle kimono. His hair was the same color as the kimono, brown, and tied back into a short ponytail, kind of like Shikamaru's, only a tad shorter. Entering the dojo, Naruto decided to take the same position as everyone else in the room and set his own sword in front of him, before kneeling in a meditative pose. I hate to be rude, spoke the boy to Naruto's left. But I believe you're interrupting my training session. Your training session? Hey, I don't know who you are, but I'm in the right place, right, Mifune-sensei? Asked Naruto. Mifune simply remained silent. HMPH, like Mifune-sama would train someone like you. How could you ever hope to be a samurai? Asked the boy. Actually, I'm a shinobi. That's even worse. I'd rather be one of those spineless thugs pretending to be samurai than a shinobi. Replied the boy. Hey, I don't care who you are, all my friends are shinobi and you think I'm just going to let you insult them, then I'm going to kick your hard. Declared Naruto as he cracked a few knuckles. The boy did the same, standing up and his fist into his palm, completely forgetting his sword. This blonde kid wasn't worth his sword after all. Naruto. Hiro. Enough. Before the two boys even knew what was happening, they were pinned to the ground, underneath Mifune's knees. I will not have both of my students acting like a bunch of Neanderthals. But Gisama, are you really taking this shinobi as a student? Asked a shocked Hiro. I am, said Mifune before he was off. But why? I'm your student. Why are you taking him as a student? Shouted Hiro. Enough, Hiro. I decided to take him as a student for the next 6 months as a way of giving back to my master for giving me everything I have, said Mifune. But what does this guy have to do with your master? Asked Hiro. You know, I have a name. It's Uzumaki Naruto, said Naruto. Uzumaki? Asked a stunned Hiro. He had never imagined an Uzumaki to show up. He is the great-great-grandson of Shuichi-sama. I am doing this in the name of my late master and I felt a training partner could do you good, Hiro, explained Mifune. What do you mean? You think I'm not good enough that you have to get me a training partner? Said Hiro. Let's go, Gramps. I'll show you that I'm good enough that I don't need a training partner. Hiro immediately grabbed his sword and faced Mifune. Mifune just let out a sigh and took his sword and faced his grandson in their little spar. In the blink of an eye, the match was over. Before Hiro could even react, Mifune's sword was pressed gently against the side of Hiro's en, not enough to hurt the poor boy, but enough to show just who won. Whoa, I didn't even see that, thought Naruto. He just heard a whistle in the back of his head and it was obvious that Kurama was slightly impressed with the samurai's speed. First Hiro, there is nothing wrong about a training partner. Someone to train with and hone your skills against is a blessing to even the greatest of swordsmen. Second, you need to get the idea out of your head that this world revolves around you. Who I train is none of your concern, and if you still desire an explanation, just look to Naruto's name and you'll know why I've agreed to take him as a student, lectured Mifune. While you are here, you will both respect one another and you will respect me as your sensei. Am I clear? Hi, Mifune sensei, said both Naruto and Hiro. Good, now let us begin, shall we? Asked Mifune. It was later in the night and a certain blonde was currently lying in his bed, unable to move his limbs at all. Jiraiya had mentioned that these training sessions were going to be hard, but the training session today was beyond hard. Hell, even Guy would be in the amount of pain that Naruto was in after the day was over. A knock was heard on his door and Naruto was just able to grunt a, "Come in." The door opened to reveal Hiro. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto had begun training, and while he couldn't say that he and Hiro were friends yet, they acknowledged each other's presence. "What do you want?" asked Naruto. Hiro burst out in a fit of smug laughter. "Just to come see your Sora after being through one of Gisama's gauntlets," said Hiro. "And let me say it's hilarious." He poked Naruto in the shoulder and a jolt of pain ran through Naruto's body. "Yeah, just wait till I kick your in the morning," replied Naruto. "As if you're lucky, you'll be able to get up to go to the bathroom by next weekend," retorted Hiro. "Wanna bet?" grunted Naruto as he struggled against the pain to rise to his feet, actually earning a surprised look from Hiro. "Now, just point me to that ramen stand I've been hearing about for the past 2 weeks. "Wait, you like ramen?" asked Hiro. Naruto just stared blankly at his training partner. "Are you kidding me? It's the food of the gods. Of course I love ramen, Tobio." "We'll see about that," grinned Hiro. It was time to put this shinobi to the ultimate test. Hiro had dragged Naruto, more like Naruto dragged Hiro, to the local ramen stand. As he sat Naruto down at a table, he pointed to a plaque on the wall behind them. 12 bowls. "No one has bested that. That means I'm the true lover of ramen in this nation," bragged Hiro. "Oh no, why did that idiot have to go and do that?" thought Kurama as he knew he was about to be drowned in the aroma of ramen that had practically embedded itself in Naruto's seal. 12 bowls is what one have for an appetizer. "Hey old man," Naruto shouted towards the chef. "I'll have 12 extra large pork ramens." The chef nodded, and before anyone knew what had happened, the bowls were in front of Naruto and gone seconds later, a still hungry look on Naruto's face. "See, I'm not even getting started yet," said Naruto as he ordered another 12 bowls. Not wanting to be outdone, Hiro ordered 24 bowls to match Naruto's 24, but found himself on the verge of a ramen-induced food coma by the 13th bowl. Needless to say, Naruto finished his 12 along with the 11 others that Hiro had yet to eat. "How?" asked Hiro. "When it comes to ramen, I'm second to no one," replied Naruto. "So you really an Uzumaki then," acknowledged Hiro. "I've been telling you that all damn week and you just now get it through your head," asked Naruto. "In my defense, you don't fit any of the descriptions from the stories Gisama has told me," said Hiro. Naruto looked down a little. "You know, I only learned about my clan not even 2 years ago, and I still have yet to find anyone who can tell me what they truly were like. Ero Sennin's given me a story or two, but nothing much. I just wish I knew more." "If that's the case, then go talk to Gisama," said Hiro. "He's told me countless stories about his master's clan. I'm sure he can tell you more about them." "Really? Thanks, but why are you doing this? I thought I was nothing but a hindrance to your training," asked Naruto. "Look, perhaps I might have gotten off on the wrong foot. Oh, and just so you know, there was a bet going on between me and a few of the other students around the village on how long you would last under Mifune Gisama's instruction," said Hiro. "I think there was one person who said you'd make it 2 days before you were crawling your way out of the village." 2 days? Do you really think I'm that much of a wimp?" asked a slightly insulted Naruto. How do you think I'm going to become Hokage someday if I can't even handle a little training? Hokage, huh? Well, it seems as if we have yet another thing in common besides the belief that ramen's the food of gods, said Hiro. Huh? Asked Naruto, tilting his head and looking at Hiro. What makes you think you're going to become Hokage? I'm not talking about becoming Hokage. But I suppose you could say my dream is to become the equivalent of your Hokage. One day I'm going to surpass my grandfather as the Shogun of the Land of Iron, declared Hiro. What's the Shogun? Asked Naruto curiously, earning an, "Are you kidding me?" look from Hiro. You've been studying under the Shogun and you don't even know what he is? Asked Hiro. He's the commander of all the samurai in the Land of Iron. Like I said, he's the equivalent to your Hokage and I'm definitely going to be the next Shogun after Gisama. That's why I've got to do everything to become the strongest samurai and that's why I can't have any shinobi dragging me down. I could say the same about you, said Naruto. As if, like you shinobi could keep up with us, said Hiro. Even the 5 great shinobi nations acknowledge us as worthy, said Hiro, before turning to look around at the village. And even if they didn't, we'd make them see just who we are. The people of the Land of Iron are proud folk, who possess a conviction that no one can rival. We will defend our home, honor, and reputation with our lives. You know, that sounds a lot like the wall of fire Gigi used to preach about, said Naruto, a saddening look coming to his face. That was the first time in a long while he had mentioned the Sandaim's name and the loss still hurt, despite Sarutobi Hiruzen being gone for over 2 years now. Gigi? Asked Hiro. Naruto returned the same, are you kidding me? Look. Yeah, he was the Sandaime Hokage, the one who made me want to become Hokage in the first place. However, he's in battle defending our village from Orochimaru team years ago. But even then, his belief in the wall of fire never dimmed. In fact, I'd say it only grew stronger in his final moments, said Naruto. I've heard about the Sandaime Hokage. If what you say and everything else I've heard is true, he was a man of honor, said Hiro. Look, I'm sorry for how we started off, but don't think this means I'm going to go easy on you. After all, I can't lose to some shinobi. Hey, I don't expect you to. Besides, I can only prove myself you're better if you give it everything you've got as well, said Naruto as he finished the very last bowl of ramen in front of them. Anyways, thank you for that, Hiro. I was wrong as well, you're not too bad yourself. You said Mifune-sensei would be able to tell me more about my clan. Yes, I believe he's usually in his study around this time, said Hiro. Currently, Mifune was sitting at his desk, writing a piece of literature. Despite his hard appearance, Mifune was also a fan of the finer arts such as writing and literature. Thankfully, the literature he was interested in wasn't the same genre as the literature, as some called it, that Jiraiya wrote. Immediately, Mifune's guard was raised and he reached for Kurosawa. He heard a knock on the door and Naruto's voice immediately called out, allowing the Shogun to relax his guard. Being as powerful of an individual as he was, Mifune had his share of enemies and he was no stranger to her attempts, those cowards. Raised as a samurai, Mifune was always one who favored an honorable fight over guerrilla-like tactics, one of the reasons most of the samurai from the Land of Iron actually looked down upon the shinobi. Making a motion for his guest to enter, the blonde Uzumaki entered the study. I must say, even I am impressed you are walking today, said Mifune, remembering the beating Naruto had at the hands of Mifune's gauntlet. The gauntlet was a series of 50 spars using wooden swords, that way no one would but that still didn't mean it didn't hurt when you got hit with them. At full speed, even a wooden sword hurt like hell, and add to that the fact that Naruto only had about 2 weeks of experience, it was definitely a surprise that the blonde was able to stand. Would you believe me when I said I'm a fast healer? Asked Naruto. Yes, I am aware of your condition, said Mifune. Now, what is it that you have sought me out for? Well, you see I only just learned about my heritage not even 2 years ago and I'm kind of ashamed to say that I don't know as much about them as I wish I did, said Naruto. Hiro mentioned that you have a ton of stories about my ancestors and I was kind of wondering if you'd be willing to share some with me. There is no shame in asking where one comes from, said Mifune, sensing a hint of shame in Naruto's voice after admitting that. And I would be more than happy to pass down some of the stories I have the pleasure of knowing. Now, what is it you would like to know? Well, I'm not even really that sure. I've tried to find some records on them in the Konoha library, but from what Ero Sennin and Barkan have told me, the civilian council in Konoha went to great lengths to try and erase the Uzumaki name from Konoha. I honestly don't know why, and I'm actually rather disappointed I can't find anything else on them, explained Naruto. That truly is a shame, said Mifune. Outside what Ero Sennin and Barkan told me, all I've ever heard about them was when Kakashi-sensei mentioned their last stand at the beginning of the Second Shinobi War, said Naruto. Ah, truly a great battle, said Mifune. What do you mean? They were all defended Naruto. Mifune merely chuckled. There is more to the glories of battle than who wins or loses. Your ancestors were honorable warriors with a conviction that rivaled even my own. While it is true that they fell in the end, the Uzumakis fought with all their heart, defending their honor and kin to the very last, explained Mifune. Perhaps I have found our story for tonight, come and take a walk with me. Begin Mifune's tale. I wish you could have seen Uzushiogakure as I did, back in its glory. The city had thrived, not only being a center of many of the major trade routes in that region, but also a center of military might. While Uzushiogakure wasn't the largest of the villages, it was the home of many powerful clans, but one stood out amongst them all, the Uzumaki clan. Over the years, the Uzumaki clan alone had built up a reputation as fierce fighters. While they had been considered powerful users of ninjutsu, their strengths lied in close combat and swordsmanship. But what they were truly known for, and feared for, was their mastery in the art of sealing techniques. I was in my late teens when I journeyed there, seeking instruction from the renowned sword master Uzumaki Shuichi. However, that is a tale for another day. Needless to say, it was not an easy task to convince Shuichi-sama to accept me as an apprentice, and it was a much more difficult journey once he did accept me. Mifune, again, my master ordered. We were currently engaging in our morning spars, as we had been for the past 7 years since being accepted as his student. I forced myself to my feet, a cry rang out through the courtyard of my master's estate, but it was silenced moments later as a beautiful young woman came out into the courtyard carrying an innocent-looking child. The child was but a day old, and it was the first time laying my eyes upon such a gentle being. It was only a day, but this child was already bouncing with energy, and even the woman carrying her was having trouble restraining the bundle of energy. The woman in question was the child's mother, Haruo. Both mother and child bore the same red hair upon their head. Perhaps we can continue later, my master said to me as he went to see his firstborn great-granddaughter. The way he played with the child was rather humorous yet heartwarming at the same time, seeing such a hardened warrior's exterior melted but the giggles of a newborn. A few minutes passed and Haruo made her way over to me, carrying her infant daughter before motioning me to take her. Are you sure? I asked. As much as I wanted to hold the child, I still felt as if I had no right to take her away from her mother, if even for just a moment. Of course, she is your goddaughter after all. I was literally at a loss for words at that time. I knew the family of my master and I had grown close over the years, but never in all my life had I imagined such an honor would have been bestowed upon me. I had expected the role of godfather to go to someone in the family, since the role of godmother went to Shuichi's younger sister, Mito. Yet here I was, standing completely speechless, and yet I managed to do the only thing I could. I cried and thanked the family for bestowing me this honor upon me. Still, if there was one thing that whole event did to me, was it filled me with a sense of hope. You see, during my years in Uzushiogakure, I had fallen in love with a very beautiful woman by the name of Keirai Uzumaki. She had beautiful red hair like the rest of her family, although I still believe to this day that hers was the most beautiful out of all. But the most striking feature was her eyes. They were a soft blue that literally shone when the moonlight reflected off of them. She was the daughter of another prominent family in the Uzumaki clan, until her parents fell honorably, saving their comrades from what was believed to be certain deaths. At the age of 7, she had been taken in by her own godparents, Morio, the son of my master, and his wife Katori. However, if you didn't know better, you'd think she truly was their daughter. She was treated as such and was loved by everyone. Even Haruo saw her as the younger sister she had always wanted. To me though, she was an angel that I had never in my wildest dreams ever thought I'd meet. I loved her, and she loved me back. We had grown close over the years, and with the family accepting my like they just had by making me little Kushina-chan's godfather, I realized that I finally had the chance to ask Morio and Katori for Kerai's hand in marriage. It was just after nightfall that I met with Kerai beneath the full moon, to tell her my intentions that I wished to marry her. She would have said yes on the spot, but we both knew that the proper way about this was to obtain the family's permission first. However, I never got the opportunity as the bells of Izu rang out through the night sky. That was the end to Izushiogakure's last day of peace. Even now, the reasons are still unknown. Many believe that it was a preemptive strike, with hopes to stem the ever-growing power of the Uzumaki clan. It was on that night that the combined forces of Iwa, Kumo, and numerous smaller nations launched their assault on the great city. Together, they numbered 40,000 strong, almost 10 times the population of Izushio itself. One thing was certain though, this force was meant to obliterate Izu from the map. Their initial strike came hard, but Izu withstood the attack. You see, the city was protected by numerous sealing arrays that blocked most jutsus, making any sort of long-ranged assault ineffective. Likewise, the island which Izushio was situated on was protected by roaring tides and L currents, making sea assaults an unwise plan of attack. The only way on or off the island was across a rather large bridge that stretched between the island and the mainland. Being the only way on or off the island, it was the only logical point of attack for the enemies, and as such it was easily defendable. For the next 3 days, numerous attempts by the enemy to gain control of the bridge were carried out, but none succeeded. As long as the warriors of Izu could control the bridge, they could keep the enemy away from the village and the civilians and children. Now, they could have attacked the enemy head-on, but that would have been as even the greatness of the Uzumaki clan couldn't withstand against the combined forces of the elemental nations, at least not until their allies in Konoha and Suna arrived to break the impending siege. So long as they controlled the bridge, they would be able to withstand. However, there was one thing that Izu did not count on, and that was the betrayal of one of their own allies, Kiri. As the one nation who had the capabilities to reach the island by sea, the Uzumaki clan had hoped to foster close relations with Kirigakure, even giving them the 7 swords as a token of friendship, but apparently it was for naught. On the 3rd day, the ships of Kirigakure were spotted closing in on the island, and it was immediately clear to the Uzumakis that they weren't here as allies. What made it worse was the presence of the Rokubi Jinchuriki. You see, the warriors of Izu could have probably repelled the forces of Kiri while keeping the bridge secure. However, a Jinchuriki, and one who could control their Biju, was a different story. Even then, the Uzumakis could have probably sealed away the Biju before it wiped them out. There most certainly would have been massive casualties on the civilian side, something the people of Izu were not willing to accept. It was at that point that the Uzumakis made the decision to abandon Izu and save the lives of the women and children while challenging the power of their attackers head-on. It was on that day that the Uzumakis would charge forth and make their last stand against the combined forces of the great nations, and that day that their name would go down in history, a history that had held tightly despite the efforts of some to erase it from the books. The entire population had gathered just before the bridge ready to move out. For the most part, the army of Izu would see a path through the attacking army, providing a route for the civilians and those warriors escorting the civilians to escape towards Konoha. It was at that point that my master approached me. Mifune, I am sorry to say that it is today that our paths diverge from one another. While I lead the armies, I want you to help guide those who cannot fight to safety, my master told me. I argued and begged him to reconsider and allow me to fight beside him, but alas, it was never destined to happen. While I had grown to love my master and his family, my destiny lied in my own homeland and to ensure that I would eventually guide my own people in the same way he led his. I will never forget my master's last words to me. Mifune, it has been an honor to train you these past years. You turned out to be by far a better student than I had ever expected. I wish I could see the day where you raise as fine a student I did, but even I know I will not survive this fight, nor do I want to, he said to me. I will proudly by my faith, fighting alongside my comrades who I have served for years, and defending those I hold precious. Help me with ensuring that those I hold precious make it to safety. While I was not destined to fight alongside my master that day, I knew for a fact that he would be fighting with me, ensuring the safety of those precious to him. As Uzumaki Shuichi went to prepare his comrades, I was approached by his son, Morio. Mifune, I would like to ask a favor of you, he said to me. Without hesitation, I accepted his request without even knowing it. I want you to take care of Karai for me in my absence. I have always seen her as my daughter and I trust no one else to take as good of care of her as you. I am also aware of the feelings you and Karai have for one another and I just want you to know there is not a better man for my daughter than you. Should it be your destinies to be together, then I have no reason to oppose. I was speechless at that point. Despite everything that was occurring, I had gained the approval of Karai's family and I found myself more determined than ever to see her and the rest of the refugees to safety. The moment finally came where the forces of Uzushiogakure, led by the Uzumaki clan, charged forth across the bridge with the rest of us following closely behind, just in time to avoid being hit by the incoming assault from the Rokubi and Kirigakure from behind. Clad in sealed armor that gave them protection from most attacks, the forces of Uzushiogakure clashed with the attacking armies, quickly see a path through the enemy front lines and towards Konoha so that the rest of us could escape. With a quick push, we broke through the enemy forces and made a break for Konoha with the majority of the forces taking up position between us and the enemy, blocking their advances to stop us. We were free, or so I thought. Apparently the enemy had sent multiple units to confront Konoha and stall them from breaking through to aid their allies in Izu. We ran straight into the back of the enemy guard and immediately found ourselves fighting for our lives. However, I had promised my master that I would see to the safety of his people and I was not going to lose them, before I dropped over myself. We fought off the enemy assaults with all our might, see down their ranks, but sadly not without taking casualties of our own. We fought with all our might but we soon found ourselves overwhelmed, but then, she went down. The very woman I had sworn to protect was struck down before my very eyes, protecting me from an incoming jutsu. It was then that I am ashamed to say that I lost it, gave into the despair and anger that had been building up inside me throughout the entire battle. I was angry. Angry at the enemy. Angry at the combined forces for attacking. But mostly, I was angry at myself for not being able to protect her. As one of my comrades finally snapped me back to reality, there were only few of us left in our party who could fight. As we thought we were about to be done in, salvation came in the form of 3 ninja in particular. Konoha had arrived, to our aid, sending 3 of the greatest ninja. It was then that I first met Master Jiraiya and to this day, I'm still in his debt. By the time we reached Konoha and had regrouped with the other parties, it was clear that we had all taken many casualties. Some units fared better, some fared worse, some had managed to escape but ended up in different locations, but the important part is we made it. After encountering that enemy resistance en route to Konoha, it was becoming clear that Konoha wouldn't have made it in time to save Izu from the oncoming assault, as it took Konoha 5 days to break through the blockade that had prevented them from assisting Izu. It wasn't until Konoha was able to break through the blockade that I learned the fate of my master and his valiant comrades. All of them, Uzumaki or not, fought together as they worked to repel the enemy forces. Even those who were not of Uzumaki B fought as if they were. They tapped into the very life force to provide themselves with the necessary strength in order to live up to their conviction and prevent the enemy's main forces from getting to those who were retreating to safety. After 2 days of constant fighting, much of the Izu army had fallen, whether it be to a blade or that they had nothing left to give. At that point in time, the enemy army had been reduced down to 33,000, but was still being held back by the remaining 50 members of the Izu army, all belonging to the Uzumaki clan. It was their renowned vitality and skill that had allowed them to survive for so long and still remain standing as if it were just a warm-up, and it was exactly that would make the enemy ever regret the assault in the first place. The 50 remaining Uzumakis, led by none other than Uzumaki Shuichi, your great-great-grandfather and my master, figured that it was now time for them to show the world that they would never be able to erase the Uzumaki legacy from the history books. For another 2 days, the 50 Uzumakis fought side by side with their brethren, see the enemy forces to half their original numbers. By then, even they were running on fumes, their legendary stamina had carried them far and their knowledge in Fuinjutsu was one of the main reasons that they were able to survive against the enemy. At that time, they had just enough energy to pump into one last seal, one that would ensure their legacy never faded. After saying their final words to their brethren, the remaining Uzumaki took up the positions, forming the symbol of the Uzumaki around a large portion of the enemy's forces, with Shuichi-sama taking up the position in the center as they activated their final jutsu, one that would cost the remainder of their energy, but one that would make their enemies know just who exactly they were. The jutsu went off in a bright flash that could even be seen from here, and when the light subsided, the last Uzumakis were gone, taking with them all who were within the area of their seal and leaving behind the symbol of their clan, carved into the very battlefield they had fought on, and instantly wiping out any enemies who were standing within the seal. End story. Whoa, was all Naruto could really say after hearing that. If you ever get the chance to travel to the battlefield, there is a tall cliff that if you climb and look down upon the battlefield, you will see the Uzumaki symbol still there, carved into the very earth itself, said Mifune. They's fighting for what they believed in. They fought for the safety of those they cared about. If it wasn't for them, everyone in Izu, including myself, would have at the hands of the combined forces of Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri. It is also believed that if it wasn't for the Uzumaki's battle, the war would have ended differently for Konoha and her allies. By this time, they had arrived back in Mifune's house and were standing in front of a sliding door that led to Mifune's Tranquility Garden. So, did my story help you understand just where you came from? Asked Mifune. I can't believe they were that powerful, and that they were the people they were, said Naruto. Neither could the enemy, said Mifune, cracking a rare joke. The laughter quickly subsided and Naruto's expression grieved. I'm sorry though that you lost so much in there though. She sounded like an amazing woman, the one you loved, said Naruto. Mifune could only help but let a small smile creep onto his face. Who said that part of my story had a sad ending? With that, Mifune opened the wooden door to his garden, and sitting in the middle was an elderly woman with red hair which was tied into a single bun and also reached down to her shoulder blades. Despite being elderly, she looked no older than her 30s and was as beautiful as the woman Mifune had just described in his story. Have you been leaving parts out of your story again, dear? Asked the woman. Is she? But how? Asked Naruto, mouth agape. Jiraiya-sama is not the only Sannin I owe a great debt to. If it had not been for Tsunade and her medical expertise, then the story certainly would have ended differently, said Mifune, as the woman joined Mifune at his side. Naruto, this is my wife, Karai, said Mifune, introducing the red-headed woman to Naruto. Karai, I'd like for you to meet Uzumaki Naruto. So this is my sister's grandson I've been hearing so much about lately, said Karai. At this point, Naruto didn't know what to feel. He was happy, but that was probably the biggest understatement of the century. He was actually looking at someone who was close enough to be regarded as family. But I thought. Karai just smiled at Naruto's attempted speech. Thought what? That you were all that was left. There's still a few of us left, Naruto-kun. Well, that was tonight's story. I'm certainly willing to share more, but I think it's best we retire. We've got a long day of training ahead of us tomorrow, said Mifune. Right, said Naruto. I'll work Maya off and I'll make you all proud. The next months passed incredibly fast for Naruto, and when the day before Ero Sennin was scheduled to return, he found himself actually wanting to stay a bit longer. What was probably the closest thing he knew to family was here in the Land of Iron. He and Hiro's friendship had grown after that night, as did the campaign between them. He was even able to coax some more stories out of Mifune and Karai about the Uzumakis. However, if there was one thing that grew even faster, it was the total number of bruises Naruto had earned as a result of training, but even then Mifune was impressed by the blonde's progress, although something about Naruto wielding a sword looked almost unnatural. It wasn't to say that the blonde hadn't become rather skilled in Kenjutsu, it was just that it felt like his fighting style was more adept for a different weapon, perhaps a chakra blade. Still, the blonde Uzumaki had picked up more than Mifune thought possible in 6 months, and perhaps it was time for him to come through on the promise he made at the beginning. Yet again, Mifune heard a knock on the door of his study and his student from Konoha entered. You wanted to see me, Mifune-sensei. Yes, as you are aware, your master will be arriving tomorrow to resume your training with him. I will say though it has been a pleasure to train you, and should you ever wish to continue your training here, you're more than welcome, said Mifune. Now, I believe I have a promise I must keep to you. When we first met, I said I would tell you more about your sword when I felt you were ready. Well, I think you're ready to know. Naruto was ecstatic. He was finally going to know what made his blade so special. Really? Thank you, Mifune-sensei. There is no need to thank me. I feel you've earned it. First understand that the sword you bear is like my sword. It is a Mito, an excellent sword and a unique blade at that. Now, as I have told you repeatedly, every Mito has a name that's associated with it. I have taught you the basics of swordsmanship and I feel that you are ready to advance to the next level. In order to do that, you must be able to show proper respect for your sword, and to do that, you need to know its name. Can you tell me your sword's name? Asked Mifune. Naruto sat for a moment, holding his blade in his lap. Over the past 6 months, one of the most important lessons Mifune had drilled into the young Jinchuriki's head was to listen to your sword and to fight as one with it. Right now, he was trying to do just that, listen to his sword. It was in the back of his mind that he could barely pick up on a faint voice, but it was there and it wasn't the other voice that he had in his head. Arashi, isn't it? Asked Naruto. Mifune couldn't help himself as a warm smile crept onto his face. It appears as if my master's sword may have found a potential wielder after all, said Mifune. You are correct, the sword's name is Arashi. As for the power it possesses, perhaps you could also tell me. I'm sure you've spent countless hours examining the sealing matrix inscribed into the blade. I have, but I'm not entirely familiar with the seals on it. I mean, they look a lot like the absorption seals I have on some of my special kunai, but it's slightly different, said Naruto. Wait, does that mean it can absorb enemy jutsus? So it does in fact appear as if we have a seal master in the making. You are close, but they do more than just absorb an enemy jutsu. In fact, it's more like they store it, allowing you to use their own jutsu when you wish and against them, said Mifune. The reflection seals, like the ones on Arashi, are some of the more powerful seals in the Uzumaki arsenal. The ability to not only absorb an enemy's attack, but turn it completely against them is one of the many reasons why your ancestors were so feared. However, they were extremely complex seals and only my master and his son were able to utilize them to their full potential. That immediately got Naruto thinking as he reached for his book. For the most part, he had finished studying and learning all of the seals in that book, but something just didn't feel right. He remembered Hiashi mentioning that the strongest seals in the Uzumaki clan were in that book, but after hearing about the seals on his sword, he couldn't recall learning about the reflection seals, and was now thinking he might have missed a few. Well, I am sorry but I am going to have to call it night, and I suggest you do the same, Naruto, said Mifune as Naruto closed his book after not finding anything he missed. With the Naruto rose and bowed to Mifune before leaving, continuing on to his room, but not before running into Hiro. Oi Naruto, want to go grab some ramen? Asked Hiro. It wasn't even a question as the two boys were immediately on their way to the ramen stand. However, even there Naruto looked to be in deep thought. What's up? You've barely touched your ramen. Come on, don't tell me an Uzumaki can't handle a measly bowl of ramen. It's not that. It's this book. I just feel like I'm missing something. I've looked over the seals in this book countless times and there's just something I'm missing. I'm sure of it, said Naruto. Here, let me see, said Hiro, grabbing for the book before Naruto could even answer. Hey, what are you doing? You could. A tearing sound was heard as Hiro managed to pull off part of the cover. Now look what you did. Sorry, I didn't think it would L so easily, apologized Hiro. However, he was right, the cover L rather easily, and after looking at it further, it even looked as if the cover was meant to L. Hidden within the cover itself was what looked to be a piece of paper, but as Naruto pulled on it, it became evident that there was a sort of scroll mechanism hidden within the bindings of the book itself, and on that piece of paper Naruto pulled out were 5 more B seals, the Uzumaki family's secret sealing techniques. I knew it. I knew I was missing something. These are them, they've gotta be, Tobio. Shouted Naruto. You know, I think this next round's on you, said Hiro. That night, Naruto couldn't wait to get started on seeing just what sort of awesome techniques had been hidden within the book. Just as he was about to unseal the first scroll, a frantic knocking was heard on his door and he could clearly make out Ero Sennin's voice on the other side. Hey Ero Sennin. I found them, I found the Uzumaki secret sealing techniques, declared Naruto. Naruto, we need to, what? Asked Jiraiya, who was taken aback slightly by Naruto's find. Never mind, there's no time for that. I checked in with my sources and it appears Iwa did in fact send a team to hunt you down. We need to get out of here quick, It appears as if they'll be here by tomorrow. Well, can't we just kick their and send them back crying? Asked Naruto. Against a normal team, maybe, but I know who they sent, said Jiraiya. So it appears my scouts reports are correct as well, said Mifune, approaching Jiraiya and Naruto. I just received word of a unit of Iwa ninja approaching the border of the Land of Iron. Yeah, I can't believe they actually sent him, said Jiraiya. Who? Asked Naruto. His name's Han of the Steam Armor. Coincidentally, he's also the Jinchuriki of the Gobi. Naruto's eyes widened at that statement. We can take them, right Ero Sennin? Asked Naruto. Jiraiya shook his head. I highly doubt that. Even I would be hard-pressed against him, and I don't think I could actually beat him, just survive long enough to escape. There's only one thing I can think of that will allow you to fight on even grounds with him, but we need to get out of here first. There are too many people here, and if we fight, there's bound to be casualties. I can't believe it's actually come to this, but if it was truly starting to come after Naruto with full force, then it can't be helped, thought Jiraiya. Mifune-sama, thank you for helping my young apprentice, but it appears as if our time here has come to an end. I understand. I wish you the best in your future endeavors, and just know, Naruto, that you'll always be welcome here, said Mifune. Thank you, Mifune-sensei. Thank you for everything you've given me, it really means a lot, said Naruto. So you're leaving without saying goodbye? Called out Hiro from down the hall. I am, but don't worry, I'll come back, and when I do, I'll kick your declared Naruto. PFT, yeah right. Besides, I'm going to be the one to become Shogun before you become Hokage. Declared Hiro. Is that a challenge? Asked Naruto. It's not a challenge, it's a truth. One that you're just going to have to eat, replied Hiro. Oh, it's Saron, said Naruto as he and Hiro glared at each other and lightning bolts shot out of their eyes, connecting in the middle. Naruto, let's go. We need to try and put some distance between us and the Iwa chases so that we're ready for them, said Jiraiya. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.